thank you. We'll move on then to, at your place, would be board policy, finance, and personnel, is that right? Or all?
That's correct.
I feel like every committee.
Diane, do you want to get a glass of water? Do policy, or we can
That's
go
me
out?
from this morning.
This morning, that is good.
There you go.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yes, wow.
That's a quick turnaround time. So,
Wow.
good for you.
Policy, okay. So there were several policies that we looked at that will be coming in January for a first reading. I'm not going to list them all here. The first ones all have to do with transportation. You're going to get a first reading of those in your next packet, so you can look through, but they're talking here about what the changes were. Then we looked at a few other policies that they're not ready for first reading yet. The first one, there was no change on idling. We looked at the use of credit card policy, which is going to also go to finance, and we had a few questions on this policy. This would be a new policy for the district if the district were to purchase or were to use a credit card. We looked at use of computers by staff and students. This has come back after Steve Jensen's looked at it, our legal team's looked at it. Again, we just had a couple questions on that, having to do with like the Wi-Fi. If someone were to use, a guest were to use our Wi-Fi, but they don't sign our, what the students sign, what would our responsibility be there? And then we talked about, the last thing was whether there's a need for a policy on how to handle suggestions or information that may arise when information or letters are sent to the board. As you all know, we recently received a letter that would kind of fall into this category. That's what started this conversation. It doesn't fall into necessarily a complaint, but we get these letters, and is there a need for a policy? So the committee didn't come to any kind of conclusion on that, if we should have one or not, but we're asking for thoughts from you guys.
Deirdre?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that we would have a policy on how we would deal with letters?
Right, if we were to get, so if we get a letter from someone that it comes to the board, it's not going to Joe or to one of the
Oh,
principals,
okay.
it's coming to us.
Oh, it comes directly to us.
And, right, it's not a concern that would fall into kind of our concern policy that we have.
Oh, or like a
So it's more
complaint.
like an advocacy or, kind of like
Or
the letter that we
communication.
had received. Like, so should we have a policy on that? I mean, this board is very good about addressing all concerns that come to us, but policies are made for, all boards, future boards, or, not necessarily the people that sit here now, but, so it came up as a discussion, and we're just kind of looking for thoughts before we take it up again.
And if I can just amplify on that, we as a committee are not saying that we believe there is a need for such a policy, but this was kind of an unusual situation, and at the time that the issue came up, there was some discussion about how the matter should be dealt with. So when we were meeting in policy, the question was, should there be a policy dealing with matters that come to the board under the kinds of auspices that this one matter did, that are not concerns about, a parent concerned about something with respect to a staff member or a piece of, a curricular matter or, something of that nature, but something that doesn't really fall neatly into any of the policy categories that we currently have. That's really, if nobody feels as though there's a need for such a policy, then we're just going to let the matter go. But we want to at least raise it before the board and ask if anybody had a different view of that.
Laura, did you have anything?
Yeah, well, I guess my question is, what would this policy, what kinds of things would this policy address? Sort of how we respond, who responds? Like, is it that kind of policy? And if that's the case, then I don't know that I have a strong positive or negative view. But I feel like generating policies for one-offs seems like it's going to constrict us a little bit. I think we and I hope all future boards will be able to be limber enough to be able to take on some of these questions and, as a group, come to some sort of agreement on how best to handle it. But I don't necessarily think we need a policy that says this person should respond to this type of query from a community member.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it's a fair question to consider, given the circumstances, but I agree with Laura. I think it's probably, I'm generally not in favor of creating policies anyway, and I think this is one of those areas where I think it can be handled without one.
Okay.
And we just want to run up the flagpole and...
Yeah. it's-
I actually
I
want to,
appreciate that.
I mean, I wouldn't mind even more, like, maybe at another point, because I personally really was very confused by this even suggestion, because I looked at, after reading this paragraph in the minutes, I looked at our policy on public concerns, so we do have a policy, and we have a policy on questions raised about curriculum. I think everyone here knows that when a letter comes to the board or a member of the board as on an issue, a matter, that it is supposed to be shared with the superintendent, which is exactly what I did. So just for anyone listening, it was an anonymous letter that I received with concerns about or questions about that I feel like fit into the public concerns about our curriculum around teaching, around the dangers of sexual abuse. And so I shared that with all of you. I shared that with you. We talked about it. So I'm just puzzled. To me, it fits into public concerns. The fact that it was anonymous, that it was not a current member of our school community, but I guess I'm just trying to figure out where it didn't fit in, because it didn't seem like any process was followed that didn't follow our policy. So if someone believes that in fact you didn't follow policy on this, then I'd want to hear about that now.
Yeah, and I don't think that's...
No, that wasn't the
was-
tenor
How
of
did it not
the
get into
conversation.
public- Did you guys review the public concerns policy?
No.
Okay, so then that might be something to look at, which is that there is a policy called public concerns, and that's the word, is public concerns. So I feel like it fits into that. So
Okay. I mean,
it might just
again,
be good to review that in case there was some issue. There must have been some thought like this didn't fit with, this didn't feel right. So if it didn't feel right, then it might be good to look at the policy and see, well, oh, now does it feel right or not?
the real genesis of this, and there's been no suggestion in the committee that either there was a need for a policy or that this matter was not handled properly according to policy, was simply that we wanted to make sure that the board as a whole did not perceive a need for a policy that dealt with a situation not necessarily similar to the one that we received the letter about, but just situations that don't fit neatly into the types of concerns that generally come to the attention of the district. I hear what you're saying about the public concerns policy, but we wanted to make sure that, generally speaking, the board was content that there was nothing more that needed to be done. And what I'm hearing is that that's generally a consensus. So,
But maybe looking at that policy that we have in a future meeting, if you want to, if there is concern generated from the meeting, then that might be useful. So any other questions for the policy? Okay, good. Diane, thank you for all of that. Done.
Take the rest.
Yeah, right. Raise your hand at all of that. We now have minutes from finance, and that's Deirdre.
Yep, and this will be very brief because I think much of what we were talking about in our finance committee meeting on the 17th has already been touched on by Tom in his earlier update on the budget, beginning of the budget planning process. Tom did talk to us about the cost savings that we had incurred this year through transportation with, as you all recall, of course, we have a different vendor this year because the contract, our previous vendor had backed out of that contract. He estimated it was approximately $351,000 in savings this year. And obviously, moving forward, we have to work with as conservatively as possible in terms of that estimate, in terms of what that will be next year. Tom walked us through very carefully year-to-date expenditures in the current budget, estimating expenses moving forward, and he highlighted some noteworthy opportunities for savings, which he's anticipating will be in the region of $363,000. And he can answer questions about those savings if we have them. We touched on the question already introduced in the audit committee report of the multi-year fund balance projections that Tom is working hard to look over the course of time, over multiple years, how to keep the fund balance where we want to see it at 2 to 4%. Right now, because of those unexpected expenses, last year we are at a 1.5% fund balance. And he is projecting by the end of this year, June 30th, 2016, it is reasonable to hope we will be back at 1.8%. And obviously, as we've already been talking about at great length, we're beginning to look at what that actual figure is going to be for the tax levy cap, and Tom's already introduced that 0.12% figure as one rather daunting coordinate for planning.
Any questions for finance? Okay, well, thank you, Jeremy. And finally, we have our personnel committee. It looks like maybe
What's Lisa?
almost every meeting, every committee met this month.
Curriculum is
This week,
I didn't get the curriculum minutes done today, folks.
I wasn't going to call you out there.
What's the matter with me?
Well, that's something to talk about on the 12th then.
We don't want to have a meeting for 30 minutes.
Okay, so personnel, we spent the bulk of the meeting talking about the current status of the negotiations with the RAA, and we'll discuss the substance of that in executive session, because that's not for public session. What is for public session is that there was an article in the Poughkeepsie Journal that Diane brought to our attention regarding the usage of short-term substitute teachers across the county, and the appearance in a chart in that article that made it seem as though our district's usage was very high relative to other school districts in the county. Turns out that that's an artifact of the perhaps misunderstanding by the Poughkeepsie Journal of what the data that they received from us, which coordinated with the request that they made from us, actually showed, because that data included both short-term and long-term substitutes, and they put it in a chart headed short-term substitutes. So if you factor that in, you realize that our usage was not what it appeared to be, and Tom also told us that our district's usage over this past year had declined. So we all went like this, and we were happy, and that was the end.
Any questions for personnel? Thanks for clarifying that issue. That's important.
That's on the front page.
Lord,
I'm sort of waving a question. So what was the journal, what was the point of this article in the journal?
well, the point of the article is about the shortage of substitutes.
Okay.
But they had a chart that broke down every school and compared last year and this year and how much you spend on substitutes. And we were like right there with Lock and Brews, and it was like, how can that be? But that's why the question, and that's why it was clear. And
when you get a FOIL request that asks for how much you spent on substitutes,
Yeah.
it's like when somebody gives you a request for your per pupil cost, there are probably at least a half dozen different legitimate, accurate ways you could calculate per pupil cost. So unless the reporter is astute enough to understand what he or she is asking for, you may get what you get. Ask a general question, you get a general answer, and then put it in the paper with a heading of short-term substitutes when what you actually did was ask for substitutes and didn't ask us to tease out your short-term substitute costs, your long-term substitute costs. Substitutes, there you go. Right. It's accuracy of reporting and researching a story and then how you put it on a page.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, did you have-
Is there any procedure just for making corrections, or is it not worth doing?
That they bury on page 17.
Yeah, I know. So, all right, so we've shared with our community corrections.
All right. Thanks everyone for all those reports. We move on now to our comment section. Good news. Does anyone have any good news to share? Of course, this month we always hear the good news from our principals and our students. Lisa?
I just want to reiterate how terrific the high school band concert was. They did a marvelous job. They had great selections in all of the band groups, and every concert seems better and better to me.
Great. That's great. Any other good news? All right, then we move on to old business. Do we have anything under old business? Anyone? All right, public comment. We are a member of the public like to comment.
You awake over there?
I'm here from the Rhinebeck side.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. And other.
And one other, I just want to give the board a heads up that based on what we felt was a very successful football merger with Pine Plains this past year, we are pursuing another merger application. Unlike what may have been the practice in past years, not just for us, but for other school districts, we're required now, all districts are required by the section, in this case section 9, to submit annual requests for mergers. So I would just want to give you a heads up that we're starting that process. It will go to the Section 9 committee for approval, and then it will be approved pending approvals by each of the boards. So I would expect that probably late January meeting, there'll be an action item to approve the merger with Pine Plains for football for 2016-17, and then it'll be a go. So I'm just giving you a heads up that that's coming down the pipe.
That's a new procedure?
Yeah, it was like something that was supposed to have been happening, and the section got a little lax about it, and a few situations came up where there were objections after these mergers had been approved for a number of years, and then the districts that had merged are up in arms, hey, we've been doing this for years, and now you're not approving it. So just to have everything be transparent, everybody's got to submit them on an annual basis. And
So could that affect, like, the teams, if we had trouble filling a team in the fall and we don't know that until, August, but we could set up a merger, is that too late because we didn't apply for that?
well, it's sport specific, so the fall sports mergers need to be submitted by January 1st
So
for
far
next
in advance,
fall.
yeah.
And then the winter mergers will be, I don't know what the date is, don't quote me, but, May 1st. And then the spring mergers for the following year will be by September 1st. They're staggered by some months ahead of time. The point is, they have to be submitted on an annual basis and approved on an annual basis.
Could lead to a problem if we had, if we had trouble with the team closer to the season when you know what kids you have, we wouldn't have the option to
It could.
have a merger.
It's possible. But, the other option is to just continue to let every merger roll forward without scrutiny, and that could cause other problems.
Sure.
So,
Did you have anything else for Adam?
no, not a single
I
thing.
know this is at our place, right?
Yes, it was FYI, yeah, that's,
Maybe we can talk about that in more detail in January, right?
Yeah, I-
register for it. This is the lobbying.
These are the lobbying
Permit
days.
for, NISBA to Sunday, Monday. The actual lobbying happens on Monday. One approach is just to go up on Monday, unless, or some people want to do Sunday.
It's just an Albany, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or go up because the Sunday things are not the actual lobbying. They're sort of some kind of networking,
Some trainings.
dinner, and,
Yeah.
so we can talk about that as we get closer. Is that what you're doing?
Give some thought to how you might want to be dealing with that. Also, we have the in-district lobbying set up with each of our three legislators. I can't actually give you the specific amounts of time, but at least one, if not two of the three are limiting us to like half an hour. So we're going to have to get in and say our piece and get out of Dodge. So, but there are two in January and one in February 18th, I think. So just so you know, hopefully they're on your calendars.
I would say if we want to do this, we really should just think about going Monday, as it costs money to go overnight. It's just in Albany.
Well,
That would be my thought.
it's all. I would also say that it's. I'm just speaking for myself. It would not be a huge deal to go up Sunday and do the training and then drive back. I mean, we're fortunate that we're not. It's not like we're driving to Buffalo for this.
No, it's like an
That,
hour and a half.
consider that as well.
Yeah.
Good point, yeah.
Also, the State of Rhinebeck dinner is January 28th, right? So
Yeah.
people, I guess, in a couple of weeks.
You should tell Mary Ann.
Okay. It's always an interesting evening
Yeah.
in many ways. I see a lot of people you know. I think it's good for the district to have a show of it. I will email you, Marion, but I'll plan to be there. And then, anyone else have any other? I'll just say, instead of taking it out of the consent agenda, I'll just use this opportunity. We're going to be accepting the resignation of Tanya Davis from the position of personnel assistant, so just want to thank her for her service for the district and wish her well in her new ventures as she moves out of the community. So we'll move on then to our action items. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing that there isn't, then may I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Lisa, seconded by Deirdre. All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Kenneth Silvern as a .43 FTE teaching assistant, assigned to a 3-hour per diem position with a Rhinebeck student at Duchess Boces at the pleasure of the Board of Education at a salary of step 1 BA plus 24, which is $52,390 times .5, which is $27,155 times .43, which equals $11,638, prorated, effective January 4th, 2016, in accordance with the RTA salary schedule for 2015-16.
So moved.
By Lisa.
Second.
Second by Deirdre. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. We have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Deborah Verdi as a long-term substitute in the position of elementary teacher at the Chancellor Livingston Elementary School at the pleasure of the board, effective January 4th, 2016 through June 23rd, 2016, at the salary of step 9 masters, $73,837 prorated in accordance with the 2015-16 RTA salary schedule. This appointment is to fill the vacancy created by the leave of absence granted to Brenda Palmatier, elementary teacher at the Chancellor Livingston Elementary School.
So moved.
By Lisa.
Second.
Second by Deirdre. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve spring coaches for the 2015-16 school year? For track, varsity, distance hurdles, Chris Sneed, $3,992. Varsity sprinting jumping, to be announced, $3,992. Varsity throwing pole vault, Justin Randall, $3,992. For track modified distance throwing, Dave Airstock, $2,453. modified tracks, sprinting and jumping, Mark Berg, $2,453. For tennis, varsity, David Jutton, $2,915. Baseball, varsity, George Nicolatas, $3,848. Junior varsity baseball, Bill Carney, $2,809. Modified baseball, Todd Martin, $2,285. Varsity softball, Scott Stuyvesant, $3,848. JV softball, to be announced, $2,809. Modified softball, Jennifer Ramo, $2,342. Crew girls varsity to be announced, $4,487, and boys varsity to be announced, $4,487. Cross varsity offense, Jan Nanza, $3,548, and varsity defense goal to be announced, $3,548.
So moved.
By Lisa.
Second?
Second by Deirdre. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve additional Rhinebeck High School activity advisors for 2015-16?
So moved.
Thank you, Lisa.
Second.
Second by Deirdre. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion to move into executive session to discuss the collective bargaining negotiations with the Rhinebeck Administrative Association?
So moved.
By Lisa.
Second.
Second by Deirdre. All those in favor? That's unanimous. We're moving into executive session.